Hey everybody, welcome to the podcast without a name. Well, that's not really what it's called. We don't really have a name for this podcast, but today we're going to be talking about Algo solutions, Algo communication devices, and the integration with Microsoft Teams. I'm Scott Rendell, Partner Solution Architect at Microsoft, and I'm joined today by Scott Farrell from Algo. And Scott, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, hey, thanks, Scott. Again, my name is Scott Farrell. I'm responsible for strategic accounts globally at Algo. And we're here at Comms vNext. We're having a great time. We've got a bunch of the product on display and that we've been demoing, and we've been seeing a lot of great traction.
Now, Scott, you and I have been doing this for what, a year and a half now? We've been talking about Algo solutions and Teams and things like that, and that seamless integration. Mm-hmm. The fact that your devices can register directly into Teams and bring basically any analog paging system right into Teams. That's really kind of what we're here to talk about, right? So you want to talk a little bit about Algo and kind of how that progression came about?
Yeah, I mean, yeah. So based on meeting you and many others that are with Microsoft and the challenges that customers were facing. So basically, what we've been seeing in the industry, and as a company, Algo is a well-established company. We've been in business for well over 50 years in the telephony manufacturing space. I've got one of my products that we'll be talking about. It's a very popular product that's used when customers are migrating, and we'll talk a little bit about this. But yeah, we build a full portfolio of devices that can tie into the SIP gateway. The devices are very easy to deploy. There's no heavy head end, as you'll see when we're talking about the endpoints. So again, the device will seamlessly register into a Teams environment via the SIP gateway, and then it provides all kinds of services and use cases that we talk about that we commonly run across. So what you'll see in the industry and what we're seeing is large migrations. People are getting away from the premise-based systems, and they're migrating into a Teams environment, and they have all this infrastructure that's in place. So let's take logistics and manufacturing. These are very large environments. They're going to have existing 70-volt paging systems that are in place, and they're going to want to be able to tie that into their new Teams environment. And we build these devices that you see here. So this is the Algo 8305, and this is a device that's PoE, would connect to the network, and basically will register into the Teams SIP gateway and provide an audio output into their legacy infrastructure. So very easily, they buy a single device, and then they can tie that legacy paging system into Teams. When we initially started working with you at Microsoft, we were limited to a single SIP registration with these devices. And we've been working very closely with your organization, and we've now introduced multiple SIP line registration. So this device can register multiple times into that environment, and not only are you going to be able to facilitate paging, but where they require, for instance, loud ringing, or they want to be able to do emergency notifications, they want to be able to trigger a message by making a call from a mobile device, right, or a client, and be able to trigger an event. That's all built right into this device.
So you say multiple SIP registrations. You're actually talking about connecting to an Entra ID in an either Azure or Microsoft 365 tenant. So right, we're actually talking about an ID that has to be, well, it doesn't necessarily have to be phone enabled unless we're going to attach a phone number to it. Right. But what that does now is that gives you the ability, using a Teams hard client, to possibly send a page, right, via like a peer-to-peer, instead of making a phone call or having your a desk phone with a page button or something like that. You can actually use it in Teams. Yeah. And we saw a great demonstration of that this morning in one of the sessions where they had Teams phones, yep, and they were actually creating pages, yep, by just calling a contact. I think that's fantastic. Now, you have some other products as well, not with you obviously, but why don't you talk a little bit about your portfolio and some of the stuff that's pretty new?
Yeah, so basically, what we're seeing is health and safety is becoming key. So, we preserve that paging environment, and in addition to being able to have an audio alert, people are very much looking for that visual capability. So you'll see that we build a wide portfolio of products. We build a wide array of speakers. You'll notice that we build multicolored strobe lights, and we recently introduced an LCD display speaker. So it's got a speaker, strobe light, 15.5-inch LCD display, and you can customize that content. So we can tie into that legacy infrastructure, you can trigger an event to take place, and then the fact that we support multicast on our devices, we can augment that environment, and we can start adding other IP endpoints that are going to bring that visual experience. So for instance, if you're going to trigger a weather warning We can flash strobe lights with an amber color, for instance, and with the LCD display panel, we literally can put a customized message on there with scrolling text to provide additional instruction. We're also seeing the use of the visual aids in the education, the K-12 space, post-secondary, where you have people that are hearing impaired. So now we'll be able to provide, when they may not be able to hear that audible message, but now they have that visual content that's available to them. So sky's the limit, number of use cases that we can do, and again, we're leveraging the Teams environment to trigger all of these, notification capabilities that we have.
Sure, you mentioned multicast, and so for those that don't know, it's just an IP protocol that works on a subnet, and it's designed for mass messaging of devices. So talk a little bit about the configuration and how that multicast works, and actually, I suppose with just one device, right, you could trigger multiple scenarios via multicast. Yes.
For sure, right? So a lot of people were under the impression that, I'm deploying all these IP endpoints, I have to register every of this device into that UC backend, and that's not the case whatsoever. So in the case of this device, for instance, as I mentioned earlier, it can register multiple times into the environment, and then what this would do is it basically becomes a broadcast device, to your point, right? And then we can scale well beyond with a number of endpoints. And we support multiple channels, so we support up to 50 multicast RTP stream capabilities on here. And then what we can do is we can align audible content and visual content to those channels. So you make a call in, you're only registering the single device, and when it answers, you can basically use DTMF, which is basically pushing a dial pad and triggering events to take place. So you could, the device answers, I want to be able to put the school in lockdown, press 1. There's a storm warning, press 2. There's an all clear, we'll press 3. And basically what happens is I'm sending audio messaging out over certain channels, which is going to hit a bunch of other devices that are subscribed on the network that are in what we call listening or receive mode. And then based on the content that's stored on for instance, the LCD displays or the multicolored strobe, then we'll flash that appropriate color or bring up the appropriate content.
Now, this sounds pretty complicated to program all this stuff. Can you talk a little bit about the programming interface?
Yeah, so basically on the devices themselves, there's a web interface for management. So we don't have a heavy overlay. There's no servers, there's no software. All the intelligence is embedded into the endpoints. So you could log into the web interface on this device and do your full programming. If you're getting into a large deployment scenario, so we work with very large organizations that have multiple sites. We also have single pane glass capabilities for programming. So the Algo device management platform that we have released about 18 months ago gives you a single pane. It's hosted in the cloud and basically will support up to 10,000 endpoints. It supports zero-touch provisioning. So what you can do is come up with all of your different use cases, build your config files, load those to the zero-touch provisioning server, and when the device gets initiated and plugged into the network, it fetches that, and basically it's going to be online, and it's going to show up in that portal, and you're going to be able to see that it's online. So another big benefit of this product set is the fact that it's all network-based, it's PoE-driven. You can also see that the devices are online. And those single pane of glass management strategies that we have are also there for monitoring, because people are using this for life safety at this point, emergency notifications and paging. They want to be sure that they know that those devices are in service, and if anything does go out of service, they want to be notified of that, and we have that capability with these devices.
Now, you said it was a hosted scenario, so even in today's day and age, there are still people that want to keep things internal. So is there a device or
Sure.
An application to manage all that internally?
Yeah. So again, as I had mentioned, right, there's the onboard UI. We also build another device called the Algo 8300. So yeah, some of our clients, that are not going to allow anything to be able to access the web or the internet. We have a device called the 8300. It would sit on the subnet, so it's a subnet-specific device, and it'll support up to 1,000 devices. And basically, it goes out and it searches, and basically populates these automatically. Then you can basically go in and group these, so you'll be able to monitor, manage. You'll be able to, use that device as your provisioning server, so you can load your config files and so on and so forth. So yes, you can build your own ecosystem for basically zero-touch provisioning with the 8300, or the 8300 can be as a redirect, and it can direct the device to go to your provisioning server and pick up a config file within your environment.
So you said you're heavy into like healthcare, manufacturing. Are there any other verticals that you guys are working in?
So healthcare, manufacturing, logistics, K-12 is a huge vertical. The education vertical is very big for us. Retail is another one that we do a lot of. And we're getting into more and more with the ability, like not only do we support multicast, SIP registration, we also support the RESTful API. So these devices, it's the art of realm of possibility. You have a lot of organizations that are customizing this. So we're starting to see, for instance, the Fort Lauderdale Airport is a reference account for us. In Fort Lauderdale, they have about 2,500 devices. Their whole strategy is to get to a full IP solution. So we started working with them. They had 155 amplifiers, over 3,000 analog speakers, and their problem was that they didn't know what was working. And that was a big problem when they had a certain situation that took place. They had an emergency situation. They realized, hey, you know what? We need something that we can monitor and manage. So what we've allowed them to do, and what we find with a lot of these large organizations, is that they can do a phased migration. They don't have to do that full rip and replace. So we can build out a really nice hybrid solution. And we've been working with them for 5 years now. And when we're done, they'll have a full IP deployed solution set in that airport, and be able to fully monitor and manage it. So that's what they really love about it. One of the comments from them as a client has been that when they hire a new staff member to come on board, and they're going to be in the IT department and they're going to be involved, they can actually train that individual in 4 hours on how to use an Algo paging solution. So that's how easy it is.
That's awesome. Now, with all these devices out there, there's software, firmware, things like that. How do they get updated, upgraded? What's that cycle look like?
Yeah, so I mean, we do 2 big revs a year, but if there's patching, fixes that need to be done, we post all of our firmware on our website. With the single pane, with the Algo device management platform, of course, it can monitor and manage up to 10,000 endpoints. So basically, your firmware is displayed there. You can basically just click on a device, ask it to go and check if there's an available firmware update. Yes, it's available. Would you like to update? Yes. Okay, I'm going to update now. We're going to have the ability to schedule updates. And again, you can then select whatever devices you want and push that all out.
That's fantastic. And I imagine it makes IT management very simple in that case.
It does.
That's fantastic. Now, we talked a little bit about some verticals, and I think you held back on me just a little bit.
Yeah.
There's one that you can talk about, just briefly, right? So can you want to talk about your JITC certification?
Oh, well, yeah, so we can mention that.
Okay.
So with the Department of Defense, they have very strict guidelines. So JITC certification is, you have the Joint Task Force Interoperability Test Command, and we were invited to have our products certified on that platform. So we've been working closely, on that with our engineering teams. We're hoping to go live in May. We'll be doing our.
So you're just now getting into that space. That's fantastic.
Oh, no, yeah, we're going to be finalizing our testing in May.
So what we find a lot of the times is when we're dealing with hardware and hardware vendors, we get that question, right? Can we work in the gov space? Can we work in the DoD space? And so that JITC certification, A, it's not easy.
No.
And B, it's very, very important for organizations that want to play in that space to have that. So congratulations with that.
Yeah, thank you.
Anything else you'd like people to know?
Well, as in my role, please reach out to me. We have an expanded team of solution architects. We're here to work with you. We as a manufacturer work very closely with our integration partners. We have an integrator program that we've launched, which I suggest people look into. And then we work very closely with our partners like you. But we build partnerships. So as in my role, I'm a vice president at Algo. I'm responsible for strategic accounts globally. I have teams that are available on the solutioning side. Please engage with us. We're here to work with you, and we're here to, you'll have access to us. You'll have access to our engineering resources, to senior management. We want you to succeed. We want you to be successful with our product portfolio. We'll look at different scenarios. If it makes business sense, we'll manufacture and build product firmware based on use cases that come to bear.
Now, that actually happened to us, if I recall. You had a customer that came to you and said, "I want MWI, right, message waiting indication, and
Right.
ringing."
That's right.
And you did it. I mean, in a matter of weeks.
We did. We did.
Yeah,
yes.
that's a great use case. Great use case. So you said they could contact you directly. How do we find you?
Yeah. So my email is Scott Farrell at algosolutions.com.
And the webpage is algosolutions.com.
And our webpage is algosolutions.com. You can reach out to, you'll see that there's contacts for, our sales, and they, of course, know how to get a hold of me, so feel free to go in that door. The other thing I'll mention is, I think I mentioned it, but I'll mention it again, firmware for the life of the product is available. Technical support for the life of the product is available directly from us. And it was a 1-year warranty. We've increased that to 2-year, and then if you subscribe to ADMP, you'll have a 3-year warranty on these devices.
That's fantastic. Well, I think that's about it for us. This has been the podcast without a name. I'm Scott Rendell with Scott Farrell from Algo Solutions. Thanks for joining.
Thanks a lot. Thanks, Scott.